Good morning, students. Very warm welcome to everyone for this session on Unacademy. Just wanted to check for my volume on YouTube before I begin. Yeah, good morning. Yes, I think I'm pretty much able to hear myself. So, on that note, gonna begin with today's class, which is on the newspaper of the 7th of September, which is yesterday. So, welcome everyone to unacademy.com, India's largest e-learning platform, possibly the world's, because thanks to India's population, youth population, and of course the enormous scope of our exams. I don't think there will be many global players that'll be bigger than us. Even if there are, I'm not aware of too many. So, on that note, let's just begin. This is our channel. Let's crack management exams, which I'm going to help you over the next couple of months, primarily in the area of general awareness. That's what I deal with. Uh, yeah, so I've told you this is our largest platform. You receive, once you get plus subscription, you get access to unlimited live and recorded courses from India's best educators. Right, this is a profile of myself, Aritro Dasgupta, and I'm an MBA in forest management, the unique area of forest management from the Indian Institute of Forest Management, which is in Bhopal. I've got a decade's work experience in teaching, training, strategy, consulting, and in content writing. My experience has primarily been in India, but I've also worked in the Middle East and been published in North America. Toppers for several exams. So last half a decade, I have been thoroughly engaged with the coaching segment and toppers to several national level exams such as CAT, CLAT, DUJAT, etc. have been my students. In fact, yesterday was the date for DUJAT. So this year also, I'm pretty certain we'll be having very good results. Okay, so all this while it was primarily offline, but now I'm sure online as well gonna have great success since I moved on to an academy, and I'm sure here also there will be a lot of success. So what all you're gonna get from the Unacademy platform? Let me quickly take you through. First of all, you receive daily live classes. So one is unacademy.com. You also so today I also have a special class at 12 p.m. 12 to 2. I'm gonna start with the current affairs of one of the months. I think the month of May I'm gonna begin with. You also have live tests and quizzes around the clock. So for just to show you how things work, you can see on the right hand side there's this chat window. So I do keep engaging my students here. You guys can also type in your comments, any doubts that you have regarding this thing. Daily live classes, you also get classes on this is our channel, Crack Management Exam. So you can receive all our classes here, the YouTube classes. For the paid classes, of course, we have the unacademy.com. The course content is structured from the head office, which is in Bengaluru, and of course you receive unlimited access to all the classes. Even if you missed out a live session, you can go back to the archives. You can actually go through downloaded sessions. Right, this is a list of some of our star educators. So Ravi, Praveen, Shabana, Samir, Bharat, and Abhilasha. These screenshots are a bit older, but the idea is that this gives you an idea of the kind of reach that our star educators have. These guys, of course, they are into quants, reasoning, and verbal. Mine is general awareness. So hopefully, very soon there will be one general awareness teacher as well on this list. On the unacademy.com, my classes are doing pretty well right now. You also receive live classes. So this is just to show you notification, a sample of the notification. So for example, if somebody needs training on percentages, again, it's a slightly older screenshot, but this is how you receive notifications. For more educators mentioned here, you could even receive notifications for entire batches can be formed. So entire batch can be formed either with an individual educator, as is there at the bottom for a single subject, or it can be for the whole course and all the subjects included. For there, of course, number of trainers will be there, as you can see on top. So we have a schedule that works for everyone. You can learn anytime, anywhere. I've already told you my subject does not involve much of calculation, so you can actually watch at any time. So this is just to show you the videos, what kind of videos we've had. So this is my session which is going on live. Yesterday I took another session. If you can follow the cursor on the mouse, daily newspaper session. Yesterday I took a YouTube session after a pretty long time, after a week. So अगर आप नीचे जाएंगे आप देखेंगे मेरी क्लास थोड़ी मिसिंग है, बट फिर 31 तारीख को मैंने 2 सेशंस लिए थे. उन दोनों की डिटेल्स आपको यहाँ पे मिल जाएंगी, and so on and so forth. You do receive all the other details. There are many other classes which I had taken during that period. I was very regular. So do go through these classes whenever is convenient for you. There is no language barrier because we speak in 16 different languages. I myself keep engaging students in Hindi. You can get your doubts cleared anytime with your educator. I told you about the live chat window. You also have a chat window on unacademy.com, so वहाँ पे भी हो सकता है. There are live polls, so again this is something that works better on unacademy.com. Polls यहाँ पे भी किए जा सकते हैं, but unacademy.com में it is much easier. Okay, so there are also live tests and quizzes. So one thing I told you is about the on-the-spot tests. You also have tests which are curated by the backend, which traverse the whole of the course. तो उसके लिए उसमें पूरा syllabus रहेगा, and you actually compete against the rest of the country. You get an idea where exactly you stand versus the rest of the country. So for that you receive a detailed report and analysis. There are PDFs as well, PDFs and detailed learning material that you can go through. Right, again, YouTube might be a little difficult, but the other sessions I've taken, you can easily record and you can go through at any time that you wish to. Okay, I want everybody to go through this. This is my code at the bottom, AD09. So just take a look, AD09. अगर आप ये code use करेंगे तो आपको flat 10% off मिलेगा. ठीक है, एक बार आप पढ़ लीजिए दोनों साइड्स में एक ही चीज लिखा हुआ है. But this is just the left hand side is highlighting a 1 year program, the right hand side is highlighting a 2 year program. Right, and I would recommend all of you to go for the long term courses. On paper it might appear that a shorter course is cheaper, but if you actually scrutinize further, a shorter course is cheaper, but bang per buck it is more expensive because per month cost is much higher. If you go for a 24-month course, the overall cost goes down significantly. Right, I've just changed my spectacles because it seemed a bit dusty. So now I can see things much clearer. Right, so I hope you've all gone through this. ठीक है, I guess सभी ने ये देख लिया. So on that note, let us begin with today's class. I'm gonna start. So today is the newspaper analysis of yesterday's paper. I know I'm running a little bit one day delayed, but that will be resolved by day after tomorrow. I'm actually busy at a few things now because there are also special classes coming up. Tomorrow is my birthday, so I'm taking it off tomorrow. So this is the newspaper, The Hindu, which as every day, this is the one which I'm gonna analyze. So I'm gonna begin immediately now. Give me a moment, please. Right. So the first piece of news which I want to discuss with you guys today pertains to something called FCRA. What exactly is FCRA? It stands for Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. Please write this down. FCRA. In fact, I'll write it down on the YouTube window so that it's easier for you. FCRA stands for Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. ठीक है, इसका मतलब क्या है? आई थिंक नाम सुन के आपको पता चल रहा है, फॉरेन से जो भी पैसा आएगा, वेदर इट इज एन एफडीआई, एन एफआईआई, or anything of that sort, FPI, which is foreign portfolio investment, all of that is regulated under this act. ठीक है, सो अभी एफसीआरए ने क्या किया है रिसेंटली? They have actually suspended four groups, four groups which can broadly be termed as Christian, because apparently they were that's the report, that they were trying to convert people. So six NGOs has their licenses have been suspended. Four of them are these kind of organizations. Which are they? Let me just read out to you the names. The organization, the four groups that are suspended. One is the Ekriosoklus Northwestern Gosner Evangelical in Jharkhand. I'm not sure if I pronounced the first word right. The second one is the Evangelical Churches Association in Manipur. The third is the Northern Evangelical Lutheran Church, again in Jharkhand. And there is also the New Life Fellowship Association, which is in Mumbai. So these have been accused of utilizing this foreign investment to, spread their religious ideology. That is something which we discourage, because religion should be one's own freedom, and money should not play a part in that. Right? Total of more than 22,000 NGOs are actually under the lens. 22,457 NGOs that are associated. Licenses of 20,000 of these have been cancelled, and another 6,000 are deemed to have been expired. Right? So that is one piece of news. There is also something, I think you've heard of this organization, this regulatory body, DGCA. DGCA stands for Directorate General of Civil Aviation. As the name suggests, it regulates all kinds of civil aviation, not looking into military aircrafts. So last couple of months, there has been this challenge facing both sides of the divide. There were lots of customers who had booked their flights for this period, March, April, May. Airlines, on the other hand, had received that money either directly or through some third party, like Make My Trip, Yatra, Ease My Trip, Clear Trip, any of these, Goibibo. Then what happened is, of course, with the lockdown, a lot of these civil flights got cancelled. Rather, most, by and large, the vast majority of them got cancelled. So then what happened is, these people, the people whose flights got cancelled, they did not get refunds. Some of them did receive refunds, naturally. So some of the flights were officially refundable. Many of them have not received. Airlines, on the other hand, they still have fixed costs. They have to pay salaries to their staff. They have to pay certain rentals, for airports where their planes are stationed in. There, and in fact, they are running quite a few flights as well. Even if it's 10 flights a month compared to the usual 100, you still need to have a lot of the usual procedures in place. So that's why airlines are struggling for survival. Passengers, on the other hand, are not getting the money which they feel they deserve. It was not their fault that the pandemic came up and the lockdowns had to be imposed. So because of this impasse between the two sides, now the DGCA has come in and they have muted a new formula which is going to work on refund for these cancelled flights. This is a 3-judge bench which was led by Justice Ashok Bhushan. He's the one looking into this entire procedure. The Ministry of Civil Aviation has actually been submitted a 48-page affidavit, right, so that both passenger interests and airlines' interests can be managed. Right. There is a really important person who passed away yesterday, especially for anybody here who's from law background. Any lawyer, if I have in today's class, or anybody from pol science background. His name is Shri Keshavananda Bharti, who was actually sage, a sadhu, a seer, as they are known as. And let me just read out to you the exact place where he was. Right, so it was somewhere in Kerala where he was mm, mm, leading a mutt or a religious establishment. But in the sometime in the 70s, there was this disagreement with the Kerala government regarding land rights acquisition and land reforms process. So he lodged a case. He was not aware of the broader implications. His idea was only the local problems. But some of the lawyers, the legal establishment, took this up, and the Keshavananda Bharti versus the state of Kerala became one of the most iconic cases in the history of jurisprudence in India. And he remained largely unaware of the importance of the bigger picture. But what happened is it ended up having a 703-page judgment, which is unique. And there was a 13 judge bench which sat on this thing, and they passed the judgment in his favor barely by one vote, 7 is to 6. And what was the eventual outcome? The eventual outcome was that this bench recognized that the preamble is the shall we say, the basic structure of the constitution. The preamble sets the tone for the entire constitution. And thus the major parts of the constitution cannot be tampered with. Even if there's a new government in the future and a new government has a vast majority in the parliament, they cannot take away the basic foundation of the constitution. That is the ideology which has been spoken of. Right, so do read up on his life. Quite an interesting life. Again, as I said, not so much in terms of what he did do his job, but more so on how his life impacted millions of others. And many say perhaps hundreds of millions, perhaps billions. Many say that his case ended up preserving the Indian constitution and the Indian democracy at a time when it could have been under threat. So that's where his importance really rose up. Right, there's a picture from Kochi, the city in Kerala, and in fact, there's a particular place called Fort Kochi. So people have been found angling there because of the monsoons. The weather has actually improved there, and that's why. There is a report from the power departments in Delhi that peak power demand in Delhi has actually risen by nearly 50% in this present unlock. We are right now into unlock 4, and peak power demand has increased by a whopping 50%. So we are returning to those levels. Last couple of months, generally speaking, we have been frustrated over a lot of things. But one thing that has kept many of our spirits high is the fact that employment has actually the environment has actually sort of improved. Pollution, at least the visible pollution, has reduced. Now, even that silver lining may not be there. Yesterday, of course, the Delhi Metro restarted operations, as did metro networks in many parts of the country. Delhi Metro started with only the yellow line, which connects North Delhi to Gurugram. Okay, and which has over 30 stations in it. Something very important yesterday, I must say, is I had told you earlier. Yesterday I had told you that our defense minister Sri Rajnath Singh, he had visited he had visited Russia for the SCO meeting. SCO stands for Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and it was an SCO defense ministers meet. SCO comprises of Russia, India, China, Pakistan, and 4 countries from Central Asia, barring Turkmenistan. Turkmenistan is not a part of it, but the other members of Central Asia, so that includes Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan. All those 4 plus India, Pakistan, China, and Russia. These 8 countries make up the SCO. So the defense ministers of all these 8 countries met, and in particular, the Russian defense minister, he was the intermediary as he conducted the talks between India and China. So because that of course has been a strained relationship of late. So they discussed the Afghan. One of the things that were discussed during this meet was India China, as I said. But while returning, so from Russia, Rajnath Singh was returning, and on the way he stepped down at in Afghanistan, in Iran, in the capital of Tehran. So there was a bilateral meeting between the defense minister of Tehran, who is Armed Forces Logistics Brigadier General Amir Hatami. So Mr. Amir Hatami and Mr. Rajnath Singh, they met to discuss the peace talks, and one of the major talks was about the Afghan peace process, because Afghanistan is a country that has been under a lot of, shall we say, duress in recent times. The Taliban is sort of resurgent right now for about the last 15 years. Post the US invasion, there has been some sort of a fledgling democracy. It is not the most strong of democracies, but still, at least there is some form of a elected government. In fact, Mr. Ashraf Ghani has won a second term. However, the Taliban keeps on creating troubles, and around Kandahar, that's where they have their base. They're pretty strong. There is also the traditional tribal council known as the Loya Jirga, which tries to keep interests of the central government, which is internationally recognized, and the Taliban both together. So all of this was actually discussed between India and Iran. Rajnath Singh also clarified how India and Iran have really old histories. In fact, Iran's history, in many ways, linked with India. Iran translates to Aryan in the Iranian language, and Iran was also the country with a very important empire, the Achaemenid Empire, I believe, which had Cyrus and Darius, and for thousands of years. In fact, Iran was the first country in the world which had a human rights council, the first ever with a human rights document. Zoroastrianism was born in Iran. So there has been a lot of history between the two countries. Iranian language played a big role in medieval Indian art and culture. Iranian language was considered, Farsi was considered as the epitome of culture in many of the courts of India. So that's why during the medieval period. So there is deep relation between the two countries historically, right? These were pretty much among the talking points. Now, this region, this West Asia, Middle East, is actually extremely strategically important for us. Now, please understand that Israel and United Arab Emirates have recently gone through a peace talk, and they have established diplomatic ties. They have also established trade ties. Now, some of this might sound really significant. It is significant, of course, because Israel is a Jewish country, by and large not recognized, no diplomatic or trade ties with Islamic countries. So this is a groundbreaking deal, and in fact, the Trump administration played a role in bringing the two sides together. So it is groundbreaking in many ways, and now other countries could also join this. Saudi Arabia, for instance, there's talk the Saudi might establish peace talks with Israel. But there is something even bigger for India out of this. One of the fact is that if you look at our neighbors, Pakistan over the last year or so, since nowadays what's happening is Saudi Arabia, since Mohammed bin Salman took over as the heir to the throne, he has been following quite a, I won't say pro-West, but yeah, thanks to the reduction in oil prices, Saudi Arabia is trying to attract investment from China, from the West. Um, Pakistan, on the other hand, is looking more towards Turkey as a regional power. Going to Turkey, Turkey has for the last 15 odd years been under the leadership of Mr. Erdogan. Turkey was for long quite a secular country for the last 80 odd years before Erdogan took over. But the last 15 years has sort of reversed many of those things. We've seen that recently with Hagia Sophia being converted into a mosque. It was a secular monument for several decades. And Turkey is a country that, most of the, I don't know if you've heard of Delhi Sultanate. So Delhi was actually, or North India was ruled by several Islamic dynasties pre-Mughals. Mughals were really major and important, so we don't classify them under Delhi Sultanate. But before that, there were five dynasties which are together categorized as the Delhi Sultanate. The last of them, the Lodhis, were Afghans. But the first four of them, the first one, the slave dynasty or the Mamluks, then you had the Khiljis, Sayyids, and the Tughlaqs. These four, they were all originally from Turkey. And Pakistan, in fact, considers itself sort of as a successor, as the heir apparent to the Turkish Empire in India. And that's one of the reasons why Imran Khan's government has been getting close to Turkey. for quite a while now. And there's also a lot of soft power. This is not just about hard power, about guns and weapons. Just to remind you of the code, but this is also the fact that Turkey is through software through that web series Ertugrul, which is being which is about the formation of the Ottoman Empire. It's a very big series comprising 150 odd episodes, and that Pakistan is promoting. Imran Khan is almost personally promoting that program. So Pakistan has sort of shifted towards alliance with Turkey, looking at Turkey as more of the head of the Islamic group, and because Turkey was also home to the Caliph not so long back. India, on the other hand, is improving its relationship with the Middle Eastern countries like UAE, like Saudi Arabia. So this can be a really important um, sort of nexus in order to nullify the threat from Pakistan. Now, where does Iran stand in? Iran openly cannot go with Saudi, primarily because these are two rival nations. Iran is Saudi, is the birthplace of Islam. It is the most powerful Sunni Islam country, most powerful on at least on theological basis. It's the origin of the same. Iran, on the other hand, has is the center of the Shia movement. Iran also has a pretty strong army. Uh, Turkey has probably an even stronger army. The Arab countries are not very highly populated and they are not so united, which is why while Saudi probably has the strongest of the lot, Egypt probably even stronger, but they don't often collaborate on the same table. So Iran can, Turkey, Pakistan is wanting to use as a bulwark, but Iran needs to now find a place which side it is going to go towards. So building good relations with Iran can be really useful over a period of time. US meanwhile has imposed sanctions on Iran, so that could have further challenges. Right, fair enough. Moving on further. Okay, so I'll move on to the second page. So metro was ready, of course, but commuters were in limbo. One, because they had to do so much of safety equipment. Many people were not really comfortable. Also, many people were genuinely scared. So the number of users on the Delhi metro wasn't as high as it was sort of expected. Um, but traders in Gurugram, they are really happy that the metro has restarted. Even if on the first day the number of travelers were fewer, over a period of time the numbers will chug up higher, and Gurugram will get some sort of business boost. That's what the term says. Right, fair enough. The rest is mostly local news. Okay, so the Supreme Court has also asked that rehabilitation of railway slums must be done before demolition, because whenever railways they expand, they obviously need to cut in through. They need to acquire land. Sometimes on that land you have squatters or illegal squatters who tend to be the slum dwellers. So these often get demolished. So the Supreme Court has asked that they should be sort of given the rights of rehabilitation. This is something that has further been spoken of by one of the political parties in India, the CPIML, which is the Communist Party of India, Marxist Leninist. Right, moving on further, not much in these pages. There is controversy regarding the dropping of the Punjabi language from the list of official languages in Jammu and Kashmir. Right, so the political parties in Punjab, they want it to be reintroduced because there's a long border and common cultures. So let's see what happens there. The Ajmer Sharif Dargah, which is of course such an important religious and tourism hub, that was set to open yesterday. Okay, now there is this important report from the Forest Ministry. So the Director General of Forests, Mr. Sanjay Kumar, he has actually advocated towards sustainable development. And there's this report which has been compiled, by the way, by my institute, the Indian Institute of Forest Management, and one of our educators, Dr. Bhaskar Sinha, his name has come up. He's the chairperson of the Center for Climate Change Studies at the Indian Institute of Forest Management in Bhopal. So his team has had submitted a report to the MOEFCC, or the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, asking for a certain revision of the forest policies. So, and that is something which the DG agrees. There has been this general trend since 1996, when some of the forest laws were amended, that the impetus has been more towards production rather than conservation. So the idea has been that you increase timber production and other forest produce production, rather than increase the rather than work on conservation. What this has led to is by 2019, last year was a critical year, because this phase of pro production, not so much pro toward conservation, this reached a sort of a critical mass in 2019. So last year, India, which has a lot of forest, we had to actually import a lot of timber. It's okay to import the best timber, which is not available. Say Burma teak. Myanmar produces possibly the best teak in the world. Well, that's okay, but we actually imported net a lot more than what could should have been. So now there's this focus change, policy change, that leads to more of conservation. In fact, for production, what the this paper has stated is that there should be more of forestry activities outside the official forest. So more tree planting, more planting of timber bearing trees, maybe on farmlands. We can do agroforestry. For example, if there's an agricultural field which produces paddy or wheat or grains or whatever, pulses, वहीं पे आप पेड़ लगा सकते हो. ठीक है, तो आपने वहीं पे पेड़ प्लांट कर दिया. That will give you shade, it will give you protection against the winds, and eventually you can get timber. The only thing is that timber production is a slow process. अगर आज आपने plant किया, maybe after a decade or maybe even longer, you will receive you know the produce. So that could be a slight issue, but otherwise it's something which is definitely workable. So the Maharashtra Assembly's monsoon session began yesterday, and all the members have to get themselves COVID tested. So monsoon session, most of these assemblies, they have three sessions: the budget session, monsoon session, and the winter session. Winter session in Maharashtra, by the way, held in Nagpur, not in Mumbai. And in fact, there was no question hour yesterday because of certain protocols, because they wanted to reduce the timing. So the BAC, or the Business Advisory Council meeting, which was held 2 weeks ago, this actually cleared what all is allowed and what is not. Right. So now moving on to editorial, one of the most important pages in the newspaper. So there is an article by one of the key journalists of the Hindu, Mr. Paneer Selvam. He keeps on writing these weekly columns on how the media should behave and how the media should, do fact checking. So he has actually spoken about how fact checking should be really important. In fact, he had written an article last week about the round the clock television coverage of the Sushant Singh Rajput case, and how a lot of the television channels, according to him, television channels in particular, had shown a lot of sensational reports. A lot of the pictures, for example, shown. I'm not going to name the companies he has mentioned, about some news channel airing pictures which were not really of that time but much older. They were circulated. So somebody had actually written as a letter to him in response, that why only single out newspaper, TV news channels? There are all the mediums are in some way or the other guilty. He says that that is probably true, but he also speaks about a backfire effect. There's something called a backfire effect, which was coined by some American academics, Brendan Nyhan and Jason Reifler. They submitted a paper called "When Corrections Fail: The Persistence of Political Misperception." So what happens is, according to this backlash theory or backfire effect, whenever you have a certain belief in some political ideology or a political or a leader, when you actually show them proof contrary to their beliefs, and in case which goes against what they actually believe in, they will end up believing it even more, because there is a sort of a victim mentality that these people do not really respect my views, so they will actually go completely against the idea, because they see this as an insult to their ideologies. Right, there's an article on the many challenges in estimating death. There's also an article by which has been translated into English. This is about policy lessons in Tamil Nadu's language formula. Tamil Nadu, you might be aware, has protested against the three language formula which has been touted in the NEP, or the new education policy. So the writer actually speaks about one of the former chief ministers of Tamil Nadu, often considered the founder, or one of the fountainheads of the Dravidian movement, which was very strong in Tamil Nadu and a few other southern states, but primarily in Tamil Nadu. So he speaks about the fact that uh, the writer speaks about how from Annadurai one could have learned about the language formula. He also talks about Singapore, a country which has lots of ethnicities, but which chose English as the link language because that was equally distant from all the other communities. And that is where he feels that the language formula may not be, the new language formula may not be applicable. And he also speaks about Lee Yuan Q, who was the dictator for long in Singapore, considered a benevolent dictator under whom Singapore progressed extremely high. So he wants that we must take some ideas from him. Right. There is an article on financing economic recovery, how regionally coordinated policies will help now that the economy is going under the greatest duress since independence. There should be a common platform by which they could actually work on. The states, they could do things together region wise. There is also an article about the judicial system, courts drift and chinks in the judicial armor. There's one on the many challenges in estimating deaths. That has been written by Dr. Anand Krishnan. He's a professor at the Center for Community Medicine at the AIMS in New Delhi. He says that it is extremely difficult to get exact figures of COVID 19 deaths because the virus has not been isolated as yet. Right. Moving on further. So I had told you about the ICHR yesterday, about the Indian Council of Historical Research. They actually have this list of all the freedom fighters in India. So a couple of leaders known as Ali Musliar and Vairam Kunnath Ahmad Haji, they were included in a list of the freedom fighters in a new book which has been released, Dictionary of Martyrs, India's Freedom Struggle, 1857 to 1947. This book was actually released by the Prime Minister last week, but their names have been dropped. All the other names have been retained, but these two names have been removed from the list. Right. Just like Maharashtra, the monsoon session yesterday also began in Telangana. However, there is no 2 day window. It will be maybe not completely normal, but it will be for a slightly longer period than in Maharashtra. Karnataka is also suffering from the uh, issues of flooding right now. There's a new party which has been floated in Assam, which is known as the AJYCP. Assam has elections next year, by the way, and the state has a total of 126 seats in the Vidhan Sabha, 14 in Lok Sabha. So just like most states, it follows a formula 9:1 ratio, just like Haryana, which is 90 and 10, so 9:1. Assam similarly 126 is to 14, so 9:1. So this new party will contest on minimum 80, maybe up to 100 seats. Not all 126. They will, however, not enter into any alliance with Congress or any of the other parties. They might ally with one or two smaller parties, but none of the established big parties. And so those few seats they will not contest. Those could be up for its allies. The Congress, meanwhile, which was in power for a long time, till 86, they were in complete power in Assam. uh, except maybe small periods I'm not aware of. But I don't think anybody completed full 5 year term in Assam till 86 besides Congress. Then for 5 years it was the AGP. Then 5 years Congress came back. Then AGP again 5 years. 2001 to 16 Congress was in power once again for 15 years before the BJP came into power for the first time in an alliance with a Bodo party and the AGP. Next year, Congress is planning to go into an alliance with the AIUDF, the All India United Democratic Front, which is led by the leader Badruddin Ajmal, who's also a tycoon, a business tycoon for the Attar industry, Attar or the sweet scents, and so these two parties are said to be in power. The AIUDF leader, Mr. Ajmal, has clarified, and his team has clarified that he is not going to be the CM face. The CM face will be reserved for somebody from the Congress. Right. Sticking with elections, before Assam, there will be Bihar this year, later this year. So for Bihar, there is this Justice for Sushant campaign, which is ongoing right now. Because Sushant Singh Rajput, there's this case which is going ongoing right now. There has been a record spike of COVID 19. I had told you we are now second on the list of maximum number of cases. So the states of West Bengal, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Jharkhand, Delhi, and Puducherry, they are the ones which are. Sorry, my mistake. The states of Maharashtra, Punjab, Gujarat, Kerala, Odisha, and the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, these are seeing record rise. While the states of West Bengal, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Jharkhand, Delhi, and Puducherry, these are under the watch. I mean, these could rise, but they are also steadily growing. But the first five, six names I mentioned, they are growing really fast. I told you last week about an incident in the Indian Ocean where a ship, where an oil tanker actually split into two. It was a Japanese ship which collided into two off Mauritius. Something similar has happened. Welcome, Soumya. Great to see you here. Good morning. Do let me know if you have any questions. अभी तक जो भी आपने अटेंड किया, कुछ भी आपकी क्वेश्चंस हो. आज 12 बजे मैं एक स्पेशल सेशन भी ले रहा हूँ unacademy.com में. So do watch out for that as well. ठीक है. Okay, so जैसा मैं बता रहा था about Mauritius, something similar could have happened of Sri Lanka. There was a fire on an oil tanker that, however, has been doused right now. That anchor was called MT New Diamond, but this has fortunately been doused off. So it was carrying crude oil from Kuwait to Odisha, but that has been now this thing. Okay, now there is also a report from a research firm called the Climate Research Horizon. It's a think tank, and they have confirmed that India needs to close a lot of old power plants. India produces, of course, a lot of electricity, but a lot of this electricity is produced by plants which are so old that the engineering has gone sort of redundant now. So they now need to be replaced by newer ones because the machinery is extremely inefficient. And due to this massive pollution that is created, if these are stopped, that because once the pollution is released, there are other costs, there are other effects on controlling the pollution. So once these effects are reduced, we will now, the country can say 53,000 crores. That is the amount of savings to the people of the country as per this report. This comes on the backdrop of 41 new coal blocks that have been opened up by the government for auctions, for fresh auctions. Um, so that, of course, will require even more plants. So the idea is to build new plants or to rebuild the older ones, demolish the older ones and build new on that surface itself rather than continuing with the old ones and processing more and more, because that will further yield more pollution. Some of the states that were analyzed were Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Gujarat, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Uttar Pradesh, and West Bengal. These account for the vast majority of the of this power generation and the dues as well, which are owed to them. Right. There has also been a discussion about the Assam Rifles. The Home Ministry and the Defense Ministry are going to discuss which side the which side will be the Assam Rifles, will it be part of the Defense Ministry or the paramilitary forces which come under the Home Ministry. So that is a discussion which is going to take place very soon between the Defense and the Home Ministries. Yes, yes, that's correct, Soumya. Do let me know if there are any other queries or questions that you have. Okay, moving on to the international page. Protests have once again started in Hong Kong. I don't know if you're aware about the situation in Hong Kong. There is a lot of, you know, sort of a freedom movement among the people there. But the police has now swooped in and caught a lot of the protesters. Germany, meanwhile, this is important. Germany has threatened Russia with sanctions. Where does Germany come in suddenly? That's because the opposition leader in Russia, Mr. Navalny, I think you are aware, there is an accusation that he was poisoned and he's actually under treatment right now in Berlin, in Germany. So there is a lot of confusion on how exactly to, rectify this problem. So he is being treated right now. And so Germany's foreign minister, Mr. Heiko Maas, he has threatened Russia because of its faulty democratic means that they could be hit with sanctions. Britain, meanwhile, has also reiterated Germany's point. The UK says that Russia has very serious questions to answer on its internal, law and order situation. There's a typhoon which is brewing off the coast of Japan. Okay, and I was talking to you about the Middle East and Western Asia. There's something else there, this UAE and Israel relation, this may not please everyone. In fact, Saudi, as I said, may also soon form better relations. The Hezbollah and Hamas, which are two of the terrorist bodies, both located in Lebanon. Hamas supports the Palestinian movement. Hezbollah is a predominantly Shia-based body. Both are anti-Israel. They do not want relations with Israel to improve because they want all the Arab countries to fight together, build something like an axis of resistance against what they dub as an imperial power as Israel, which is occupying their territories and persecuting ordinary Palestinians. However, even they are ready for peace talks of some sort. They are ready to meet leaders from other countries so that so Hezbollah actually runs a television channel called Al Manar, and that's where they have discussed that they are okay with this diplomatic drive if they are part of the discussion, so that their point can also be heard. Right? Okay, Amazon has banned sale of imported seeds in the US because there were cases of mystery seeds people received. So there is this fear of bioterrorism. So that's why Amazon has banned the sale of mystery seeds. I'll go to the Times of India for the business news because that's not very detailed here yesterday. I'll take you through to the business news and a couple of other reports. But first of all, from the sports page, great news is that the IPL schedule has now been declared. And as you know, we guys, Unacademy, will be associate sponsors this year. This year's IPL will actually be the longest, one of the longest, if not the longest ever, because it is going to take place over 50 days, beginning on September 19th, ending on 3rd of November. So all these first round matches, there'll be a total of 56 matches, followed by the qualifiers. There'll be three of them. Qualifiers, the dates are not, I mean, in the sense we don't know the venues exactly or the dates, because those are held in case required. Sometimes they are not held. All the matches are not held, but so what is happening right now is that the first game on September 19th will be Mumbai Indians versus Chennai Super Kings. A total of 56, as I said, first round matches. 24 of those matches will be in Abu Dhabi, in Dubai, 20 in Abu Dhabi, and just 12 in Sharjah. Usually, Dubai hosts fewer matches because the stadium is smaller. Abu Dhabi and Sharjah have bigger stadiums. But this time, because it's anyway behind closed doors, and most teams will be based in Dubai and neighboring Ajman. So that's why it was decided to have matches mostly in Dubai. So 24 matches in Dubai, 20 in Abu Dhabi, 12 in Sharjah. The qualifier venues have not yet been finalized. England has defeated Australia in the second T20 international, so they've already taken an unassailable 2-0 lead in the series. Jos Butler scored a 77 to clinch the game for England. Right. There's a camp for badminton players which began yesterday for the upcoming Thomas and Uber Cup. Thomas and Uber Cup, just like Davis and Fed Cup in lawn tennis, they are when you represent teams. So you have series of singles and doubles matches. So you represent your country and not yourself. Thomas is for men, Uber is for women, and they'll be held in Denmark this year. And the the training right now is taking place at the Gopi Chand Academy, which is in Hyderabad, capital of Telangana. There's a mandatory COVID-19 test for everyone. Right, the US Open is also ongoing. And there is progress. Novak Djokovic shockingly has been disqualified because he hit, maybe accidentally, he hit one of the officials. So he has been disqualified with Nadal not playing, Federer not playing, and now Djokovic disqualified. It opens, opportunities for any new player to stake claim. Right. Moving on to football, we are also having the Nations League matches. So France won their game. Kylian Mbappe scored last night. Italy defeated the Netherlands. That's big news. We also saw a couple of other interesting results. Portugal scored 4 goals. Okay, so in Reykjavik, the capital of Iceland, Iceland lost at home to England. I think I told you this yesterday. Denmark lost at home to Belgium. Goals from Jason Denayer and Dries Mertens. In Sweden, the hosts lost to France by a single goal. Portugal scored 4 against Croatia, who also scored 1. There was no Cristiano Ronaldo, but Joao Felix. Fabio Silva, by the way, new signing of Wolverhampton Wanderers. Diogo Jota, who already plays for that club. And Manchester City's Joao Cancelo. They took up the honours. The Tour de France is also ongoing for cycling. And of course, there was the Monza Grand Prix, the Italian Grand Prix, which is held in Monza near Italy, near Milan. So this time it is a relatively lesser known player, Mr. Pierre Gasly, who is a Frenchman, and he races for Italy based Alpha Tauri, who won the race, going against the usual trend where Lewis Hamilton and his Mercedes teammate, Mr. Bottas, they have been dominating for the most part. Right. Okay. Now I'm done with the Hindu. I'm now gonna move to the Times of India. There is this shocking report. I must say, I'm really surprised to hear this. There is this new report by the NSO, the NSSO, or the National Statistical Office, which NSO, National Statistical Office, they have done a study on literacy rate in India, and I just find it hard to believe. In fact, yesterday I told you about Andhra Pradesh leading in terms of ease of doing business in the country, but now it seems Andhra Pradesh is right at the bottom in the country with only a 66% literacy rate. I'll take you through to the exact details rather than talking ऊपर ऊपर से. मैं आपको exact detail बताता हूँ. Yes, so Kerala, as expected, is right on top with a 96% literacy rate. The gap between men and women is also the least in this state at only 2.2 percentage points. 97.4 for men, 95.2 for females. I'm not sure whether northeastern states were included because I am aware that Mizoram and Nagaland have extremely high literacy rates, but I can't find their names here. Delhi, of course, is second. Uttarakhand, surprising that is, they are third. Himachal is fourth. Assam, Maharashtra, Punjab, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, West Bengal, Haryana, Chhattisgarh, and so on and so forth. But right at the bottom is Andhra Pradesh. Bihar and Rajasthan, which were at the bottom not that long back, they have both overtaken Andhra. Rajasthan continues to have the lowest female literacy rate and also the highest gap between male and female. There's a 23.2 percentage point gap between men and women in Rajasthan. But in terms of overall literacy, Andhra is at the bottom. Even in terms of female literacy, Andhra is second from bottom. I must say this has come as a complete shock to me. Usually, I blindly read all reports. I'm a little confused with this, so I want to go further into details. मैं देखता हूँ फिर मैं आपको further बताता हूँ what exactly has happened. There's a case of some man eating or human eating leopards in Uttarakhand near Dehradun. They were actually very difficult to track because this was a group of 8 leopards which were together venturing out of. Leopards are usually solitary creatures, but when I'm saying together, I don't mean they were hunting together as a pack like wolves or dogs or even lions. मेरा वो मतलब नहीं था. But they're more or less from the same territory who go out at more or less the similar period of time. But because it was 8 of them more or less together near each other, it was very difficult for the forest department to identify who exactly, which of them has been the man eater, because obviously you can't do a random firing on all 8 of them and you don't know which of them. So it has finally that has been decoded. So kudos to the forest department. There were actually 8 adults and also 2 cubs in that group. So one of them, the adults, has been identified as the man eater. So that has been isolated and kept out separately, and now it has also been terminated. This particular one. There's this very famous race called the Kentucky Derby, one of the most famous races in the world of horse racing. Kentucky is a state in USA, the birthplace, by the way, of Abraham Lincoln, legendary president. Also, we know KFC, Kentucky because of Kentucky Fried Chicken or KFC. So Kentucky Derby, which is one of the most prestigious horse racing events this year, the winner is actually co-owned by an Indian who's Mumbai's Mr. Gaurav Rampal. So congratulations on that there. I told you about the Hindustan Awam Morcha, which has joined the NDA in Bihar in alliance with the BJP, the JDU of Nitish Kumar, and the LJP of the past ones. So they are yet to decide on a seat sharing formula that will probably soon be finalized. So there's a very important movie, very well-known movie called Hotel Rwanda. The person who was considered the hero in that film, however, has been alleged to be supporting rebel violence. So the President Paul Kagame, he has ordered that this person be tried in the court. UP elections not far away, 2022, Uttar Pradesh, the biggest state election in the country. So the Congress has already started creating a team in order to do a preliminary assessment of the day of the state. There is actually a really interesting article which is owed to the newspaper, written by Mr. Sanjeev Bhargav. He's the director of the Times of India brand, and he's spoken about a poem by Gulzar, legendary lyricist, legendary poet, and about how the printed page brings proportion, accuracy, and calm reflection in complete contrast to television or the digital medium. And that's why this is also important. There is also this talk about USA by Mr. Chidanand Rajghatta, a very important political writer and keen observer. So he's spoken about how the politics in USA has evolved now. Now moving into probably the most important page, which is the business page. Soumya, are you there? Do let me know. I can see a couple of students here are watching. So do let me know. Put in your comments. Will be great to interact. Okay, so there is this PE firm or private equity firm, Gaja Capital. They might soon lead $100 million round in the IMG. IMG is a company which is said to be acquired. Airtel, meanwhile, has unveiled an unlimited broadband plan. This is to take on Geo and, of course, the Idea Vodafone collaboration. The HDFC Bank, which is India's biggest bank and also the third biggest company overall, they have announced that affordable housing will be a major growth driver for the HDFC. Retailers, meanwhile, are banking on JIT strategy. Are you aware what is JIT? JIT, anyone in business parlance, what exactly does it mean? JIT stands for just in time. So retailers feel that right now with organized retail, especially the physical retail, is sort of under duress. So they need to ensure just in time strategy so that this is not compromised. Former RBI Governor Mr. Rangarajan, he says that in spite of the massive gloom in Indian economy right now, a small proportion of positive growth in the financial year 21, which is the one we are into right now, 2021, cannot be completely ruled out because what happened in the last quarter, that 23.9% reduction, contraction of the economy, that happened because of something unusual, but that will likely change over the next couple of months, at least to some extent. So things could actually improve. That's the idea. Now, there's a really important report about salons, beauty parlors, and salons. They, as you very well known, have been among the biggest sufferers during this period of lockdown, and it is also in a social case quite a challenge because lots of women are engaged, lots of women entrepreneurs are engaged in these businesses. So it's also an empowering tool, these salons and beauty parlors. Right, but there is this report that now that these are somewhat chugging back to life, the strange thing has been the ratio where there are more number of men visitors. Generally, we assume that women would be more fond of beauty parlors and grooming and would spend longer hours in beauty parlors. That's the usual cliched stereotype. However, that seems to be changing right now. The pre-lockdown statistics, which was supplied by one of the unisex salons, which is Enrich, and also the related Jean-Claude Biguin salons. They came up with a ratio of 70 is to 30. That was before the lockdown. 70% visitors were women, 30% men. Even that would surprise many. But now it is 40 is to 60. So 60% visitors are actually men. It also says that while footfalls are definitely down, the revenue reduction is slightly less than the footfall being down. So footfall right now is so the footfall down is at around 55 to 60%, but the revenue down is a bit less than that. Why is that the case? Because even though more number of people are visiting, fewer number of people are visiting, the ones who are, they're actually doing more things. Because what's happening is there's this fear of going to this public place like a salon. But once you're there, once the things start, and once you're convinced that all the precautions are being taken place, people tend to do more things. Now with video conferencing and online studies, grooming, especially beard grooming, facial grooming, hair. This is I need to take care. I know this has become especially important right now, and even now there are more number of men work in the workforce than women, which is probably explains why so many men are going out to these beauty salons. This has also been confirmed by the CEO of B Blunt. His name is Spurti Shetty. So he has also confirmed the same. Earlier, on average, every person visiting a parlor was doing 2.1 number of items. Now they're doing 3 items, which means the overall cost for the customer is more. The revenue for the salon is also more. So right now, maybe somebody would just go for a haircut and maybe a short massage on the hair. Now they're also getting facials done, pedicure or manicure. So that is leading to a very similar story with malls now, because there is restriction in number of people who can visit. So what's happening is the window shoppers has declined a lot, but revenues have not declined by such a great extent because the ones who are visiting malls now, they are the serious ones who have gone there for the primary purpose of purchase and not for window shopping. Right, little bit on sports before I end it up. I did tell you about some of these stories in of football, of course. There's also the CPL, which is going on, the Caribbean Premier League, with the Trinidad and Tobago Knight Riders. They are doing pretty well right now. Right, there is this spinner. His name is Ravi Bishnoi. I was looking for his first name. Ravi Bishnoi is now working actually with in the Kings 11 Punjab. He's working with Anil Kumble, who better, and so he actually wants to develop his flipper. Flipper is one of the styles of spin bowling. So he's actually working closely with Anil Kumble. So India might have an ace spinner very soon on our hands. Right. So, do let me know if there are any questions. Otherwise, I'm done with today's session. This is my code because I'm analyzing yesterday's paper, so I didn't want to go on too long. I've just spoken about the most important points. There's no point in discussing daily COVID cases or daily sports news, something which will change the next day. Right. So, I'll just keep the session open for a few minutes. Do let me know if there are any doubts and questions. This is the code. What are you waiting for? Do like, share, and subscribe. You know the drill. That's how we work. Share the word among everyone because GK is something you need to start from today itself and not wait for the exams to start or something. अभी से करोगे तभी. There's no point in getting a huge percentile and then not make it into any college because you need to speak, and it's not just about speaking but speaking with the right content. Right. So on that note, I'm wrapping up today's session. Thank you so much, guys. See you all tomorrow. In fact, see you all today. Not tomorrow. I'm not taking any session tomorrow, but today at 12 p.m. I'm conducting a special class on unacademy.com. So see you guys for that. मैं कॉल बैक करता हूँ.